What's up, and welcome to another episode of Black in the Maritimes. I'm Fidel.
I'm Hillary.
I'm Clinton.
And I'm Milan.
And we have a different week and different stuff. We're going to start with something light because, again, we have a lot of bullshit to say. But, again, we're going to start with something light. And, we'll see how we smooth the bullshit in. So Drake, the Canadian rapper, singer, the light-skinned lover, he just got nominated as Artist of the Decade for Billboard, becoming the first Canadian artist to do so, becoming the first Canadian rapper to do so. The other people with that was Eminem, which was the first rapper and then Adele also has gotten the nomination. Drake has broken all sorts of records in Billboard, having 3 singles the same week and being in 1, 2, 3, having the most number ones, having number 1 albums. He pretty much has done everything on Billboard. So he is getting Artist of the Decade from 2010 to 2020. It's kind of hard to say that you can't say that he hasn't had a bad decade. He definitely has had a good decade. So let's start with Hillary. I'm seeing her look. What is it?
I feel like Best of the Decade feels like a very big title. I'm a proud Canadian. I think that that's great. I think that he's super talented. I can't say that I've listened to any of his stuff in like the last 3 years, I feel like. So I think for me, that's why like the whole decade feels like a long period of time. Like I just don't remember him being prevalent and important that entire 10 years for me and my music sphere. But like, I'm all for Canadians getting awards. I think that he's really talented. I think that he's really great as a musician. Good for him.
I'll be honest with you, that In My Feelings thing, I didn't, other than that, I don't remember a song going so viral after that one. Thing went really viral worldwide. So
I don't remember anything after that one either, which is a little bit why I'm like, what happened after? Like, I haven't heard his most recent stuff. So that's why I'm a little like, really? Okay.
What about you, Clinton?
Well, Drake doesn't really have recent stuff. He's really trying to find himself. He keeps on experimenting. First, he's doing like UK grime and then this style and then that style. He's trying to find something and do his analytics and see what sticks. That being said, he's been super relevant. He's been the top rapper in the world for the past decade, unhindered. No matter what he puts out, everyone listens to it, whether it's good or not. He just has this following that is unending. What I find weird though is that how is he the musician of the decade, but he's not even near the highest paid musician on an annual basis. He's the biggest rapper of the world. He's one of the biggest artists in the world, but there's so many other artists that are making so much more than him off of music annually. So how do those two things correspond with each other?
Well, it's because he has that in the most album hits in the past 10 years. So the only one that compares to him is Taylor Swift.
Taylor,
Taylor Swift.
Ed Sheeran,
they picked Drake.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran,
Beyonce. They're all earning more than him annually.
No, but I mean, a lot of things when it comes to revenue, when it comes to like touring and thing, you got to say, like, for example, a guy like Paul McCartney, he will probably get a lot of money. Because
but Paul McCartney's not even in the same boat as Drake. Like, Paul McCartney
they're not.
Is iconic status. Drake is.
But he will make
but
more
Billboard's
money.
Breaking records.
Or YouTube. But the Billboard, remember, is a chart. So what happens is that over the past 10 years, Drake has gotten the most charts over a decade. So that's why he's getting it.
The most. Okay, but when you say the most charts, you mean the most songs charting?
Albums too. No, number ones and albums.
Well, are we talking? Well, I mean, we must be talking about his collabs too, right? Because if that case, then that would make sense. If you're talking about his tracks, his albums, and his collaborations, which he does a lot of.
Yeah, a bunch of every. So far, what we're seeing here is that if we go Billboard's top artists of 2010, according to Billboard, is number 1 is Drake, number 2 Taylor Swift, number 3 Bruno Mars, number 4 Rihanna, Number 5, Adele. Number 6, Ed Sheeran. Number 7, Justin Bieber. Number 8, Katy Perry. Number 9, Maroon 5. And number 10 is Post Malone.
Okay, well, out of
Of
everyone, I'm happy
2010?
it's Drake.
Yeah, I guess. I guess
Never
out of
mind.
those-
I take back
out of
every
those 10,
animal.
yeah, give it to
Those are the
Drake. That's
10
good.
most top artists of 2000 of the 2010s, from 2010 to 2020.
Yeah.
I mean,
So what do you
for
think
him.
about it, Alon?
I think that I agree with Clinton. I think that, you know what, good or bad, Drake has found the key to longevity, which is just put everything out that you can and hope that it sticks. And that's what he does. He puts it out, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether, you know, he wrote it or it was ghostwritten. He doesn't care. He just puts it out. I think he's done a very good job with the social media. I think he's done a very good job with just being that, you know, that guy of the moment. He works hard. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I can't take the accolade away from him. He definitely worked for it. I'm glad it's not like fucking Jay-Z or some other fucking half-ass guy who doesn't really deserve it. But look,
don't like
he's
Jay-Z?
Canadian. Listen, I don't like Jay-Z, Clinton. I know you love Jay-Z. I can't stand the motherfucker, right? I can't stand him.
I'm starting to
but-
see your side of things, to be honest. I mean,
I'm just saying, like, at least they gave it to a guy who works hard. They didn't give it to, you know, Trippie Redd. I mean, I like Trippie Redd and all, nothing against him. But there are a lot of younger rappers who don't work as hard as Drake. And Drake is one of those guys who I think is, you know, when they say, you know, hard work beats talent, I think he's an example of that, where he just really works hard. He's made some good business moves with his OVO brand. You know, and he just does what he does, and women like him. So as long as women keep liking Drake, he will always sell records. He'll always be that guy. I know Hillary will not be in line for a Drake autograph, and I feel her on that.
Like I
you
would
know,
to give it
but-
to my cousin who loves him. Like
There you
I
go.
think that he's I think he's good looking, very talented. He's all right, but he can stay
like-
over there.
he's like the Madonna of the 2010s, right? In the sense that he's able to constantly reimagine
He's got a lot
himself,
more talent than
restructure
Madonna.
himself. Yeah, but he's always
Didn't
he's
he
always
kiss Madonna?
yeah, that was
Probably.
Madonna
Didn't they
kissed
on
him.
that
Madonna
award?
kissed
kissed
him.
him. Madonna kissed him. But he's always
Madonna.
able to analyze cultural trends and adapt the music he puts out to meet the needs of the culture in that moment.
Yeah,
Is what I'm trying to say.
and
He's constantly reinventing himself, is what I was trying to say.
I
Maybe-
agree with Clinton 100%. He
maybe-
does. Yeah.
Maybe in that kiss, those powers were transferred from Madonna onto Drake, and
Chemical
now
hormones,
yeah, he has the ability to just like foresee when he should talk about the Pope, when he should talk about his children. Maybe he'll wear a cone bra next. Now that's a Drake I would sign up for.
I mean, the comparing Drake to Madonna is quite. I mean, it's quite a comparison because I mean,
It's not a comparison
Not.
because Madonna is here's the thing. Madonna was at the right place at the right time in music history, because if you listen to Madonna's shit, Madonna could not sing, and Madonna knows it. Like, she could not sing. She was well produced. She worked with a lot of great producers in her career. She broke a lot of ground in a lot of ways when it came to the music industry, as far as owning her own label, you know, the type of artists that she signed to Maverick Records, the kind of tours that she put on. She definitely made a mark, and that I felt was her talent, was more the marketing end and the business end than it was her music. Because honestly, you know, she could have used some auto-tune.
She
I
stayed
feel
relevant
like-
for so long because she was always reinventing her music. It was
Yeah,
changing. with
I
the
agree
times.
with that. Yeah, I think
Go
the
ahead,
thing with Madonna was that it's like, for example, and again, I'm in the electronic music industry, and Ray of Light
Was a great album. But that's all
was a-
David Arnold, though. That was all
Yeah.
Dave Arnold's production. That was because Madonna sang on it. It's because
Hold on.
David Arnold can make amazing fucking music.
I'm not saying the music or part. I think at that point in time, electronic music, like she was relevant in the underground before the underground was cool, right? So when you're a little bit ahead of the time, like people that were listening to that album and did remixes and stuff like that, when EDM popped out, a lot of the influence of the big DJs like the Tiestos and the Armin van Buuren's, like Madonna was a big influence on them because of that album, right? So I think I think I agree with that in that sense. Like Drake has been able to do dance hall, grime. He's been able to do Afro beats. He collaborated with Burna Boy. He collaborated with guys from the UK. He collaborated with Buju Banton. Like he definitely has like this world feeling. Like Madonna has that too. She has like this world feeling that she makes music for people that may not necessarily be into American culture, but Drake has that. Drake has that world. And also what I'm just checking here, because I just read the top 10, other than Bruno Mars, which he's like Filipino, he's the only black guy here.
Isn't he Hawaiian?
I think so.
He's
like
black.
Hawaiian.
He's black. Just say he's black.
Yeah.
Well, he is like half Hawaiian. He is Hawaiian, but I mean, dude, he's brown. Like he's short and he's brown. Like
yeah,
he's black.
He's definitely.
It's like Tiger Woods. You're black. Like the details really don't matter. Where if you're brown and you're on a list of a bunch of white people, you're black and you count, and we take you and we accept you and we move on.
You. We accept you and we give you hugs.
Like other than
pretty much, you know what I mean?
Other than
if it was like a list of all black artists that we can nitpick and be like, okay, he's Hawaiian, he's not, he's Filipino.
Yeah, so
but on that list, yeah.
Well, him and Rihanna, Bruno Mars, Rihanna, and Drake are the only 3 black artists here.
Impressive for Rihanna to be on it. Just considering how long it's been since she's released something new.
But
I think Rihanna's ticket is that she does. When she did that whole EDM stint, I think for me anyway, much like Nicki, I feel that is what kind of put her over the top, where she reached another plateau where she doesn't have to release stuff regularly.
Yeah.
And she's made herself, an entrepreneur, and she's made herself a philanthropist. Like she's done things that expand way beyond this. So, but I think that EDM phase really helped her to get on that list.
I'll be honest with you. From 2010 to 15, Rihanna had like hit after hit after hit.
It's gotta be that, yeah.
Like she had like a bunch of hits in 5 years. Like 5 years, like she had the S&M. She had Good Girl Gone Bad. She had like a bunch of hits. Anti the album. Like she had for 5 consecutive years, she was that girl. Like she was the girl.
I have 2 questions. So question 1, do you think if One Direction was still a band that they would be on the list? Because compared to some of the people on that list, I'm just saying Billboard-wise, the fandom was crazy. Talent-wise, trash. Let me be clear. But money-wise and hits-wise, I'm wondering. But my real question is, who do you think, based on where we are right now, will be the next one? The net like for 2020 oh good God, 2020 to 2030.
I will politely disagree because if you guys have seen Ed Sheeran, the people the hits that he has written, it's incredible the amount of.
But you can say the same thing about Adam Levine too, or you can say the same thing about the guy from fucking what's the band of that?
Well, does it count if they're writing stuff too? It's not just like performing in the charts that they're topping themselves as an artist.
But we're not talking like who Ed Sheeran has written stuff for Jamie Foxx from
but does that contribute to him being on that list?
Right. And the guy from One Republic has written hits for Maroon 5 and everyone else too. So I mean, I don't think it's going by, because in that case he should be on that list. Because he's written songs for everyone on that list.
No. I mean talented. Well, when it's talented in hits, Ed Sheeran he's a very talented guy.
He's a borderline talented dude. Like I don't think Ed's that talented. I like there are a few songs that I do like that he's done, but I don't think he's as talented as people like to give him credit for. I think that him again, it was oversaturation. I think Ed Sheeran said in a couple interviews that a lot of the songs that he put out and on albums are just filler. Like he was just writing out of his ass. He wasn't really trying. You know what I mean? He just had to put songs out. I think that Ed was just one of those artists, again, that was oversaturated, that they just released everything that he put out. Some was really good. A lot of it was trash. But he was the guy of the moment. But I feel like that is a Drake business model.
I would just like to say that in the Billboard, if you keep scrolling, number 19 is One Direction, considering they disbanded in 2015, and they still beat out Justin Timberlake.
Well, Justin Timberlake fell off the fucking map for the past.
but it's a different era too, right? I think Justin Timberlake was more early 2000s.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we don't support him anymore.
No, not at all.
In that One Direction. But I mean, like, for example, I could tell you this, but if you follow UK grime music, Ed Sheeran, it's one of the guys that, like, I think he's the only white guy that has ever even mentioned in the grime movement, which is kind of impressive for you guys, like, to be in like an underground, like, black movement. And he could be like with one of the godfathers, which is Wiley. I don't know if you guys know who Wiley is, but he's like the godfather of the grime movement. But yeah, I mean, having that said, I was gonna have one question.
I asked a question that no one ever answered. Who do you guys think is going to be the next decades based on who we have now? Thank you. I have an opinion.
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, there's a lot
next decade. Holy frig, at 20 to 30.
I think at this rate,
in rap,
potentially,
no one even has a chance until Drake steps down, right? It's just he has the persona where he's on top until he stops. Like, which artist is going to come up and knock him off of his throne, right?
In terms of all of the genres, like, right now, I feel like it's going to be Billie Eilish.
What about that?
No, I can't.
What about that KTS pop, the Korean pop group? What are they called?
BTS.
BTS, yeah.
Yeah, BTS.
Well, they're not even on here.
That's weird.
No, but they
just came out.
Yeah, they will be for sure.
I think
Meg Thee Stallion will probably definitely make it on there. She keeps going.
Oh, Cardi B maybe.
Cardi will make it on there. No.
You guys asked what it was determined. This might help you answer the question. So you asked what the award was determined by. How do they name it? So it's determined by chart performance, social media data, whatever that means, and touring revenue. So those are the three key factors.
I'll be honest with you guys, and you guys are not in the Latin word, but there's a kid called Bad Bunny that he's breaking every goddamn chart in the universe. So
huge. Yeah.
He's huge.
No, he's huge. He is.
So I wouldn't be vain if Bad Bunny might be that guy, because he's huge.
That's if Billboard wants to recognize that, because Billboard does separate their Latin charts from their.
But
American
even
pop
his stuff is getting in the top 100. His album was in the number one in the 200 chart.
Was The Weeknd not on that list?
No,
yeah,
because of his
top 10. He's not top 10.
He's not top 10.
Surprising.
He's 14.
That's very surprising.
But
after
remember,
10, it goes, Lady Gaga, Ariana Grande, Imagine Dragons, then The Weeknd, and then Nicki, and then Eminem.
But remember that The Weeknd, he again, I agree with Alon. Drake works a lot. He releases stuff constantly. The Weeknd doesn't release as much stuff as Drake does.
True.
Not even close.
He
used to.
Yeah.
He used to. Before he became this whole 80s, retro guy, he did. Like he when he was under Drake's wing still, or under the OVO brand, he did. I felt like he released a lot of, he featured in a lot of things. He had singles out. I felt like when he kind of went on, in his own path, yeah, you're right. He's dropping records like every 2 years. It's not as frequent as it needs to be. It's going to be a tough chart though, because with Corona, you're not going to have touring revenue. So it's going to be strictly sales and streams, unfortunately. So it will be an interesting list. So whoever pulls out the most streams is going to get that top spot, unless touring ends up coming back.
I'm honestly impressed Taylor Swift came back from that embarrassment a few years ago.
Listen, you know what? Taylor got a really raw deal with Bad Machine, and I give her a lot of credit for re-releasing her material and, recouping revenue that should have been hers in the first place. Like, they really, there are bad contracts, but they really robbed her, of her proper royalties. And I feel that way anyway. That's how
Not
I
only
feel
that, but the Kanye Kim Kardashian thing. Like, some people would have just crawled under a rock and never resurfaced again, right? But she's got strong enough character to say F that and bounce back and
see. But I've always felt that her beef with Kanye was a bit staged.
Yeah, maybe.
I always have. Because they've had phone conversation. I think she released a conversation about
I know.
he wanted to sample something, and she was like, "No, I'm not." They clearly have a rapport. And I've always felt that their so-called beef was just, it made for good drama. It made all of the Taylor lovers love Taylor even more, and it led into Kanye's brand, right? So it was a win-win for everybody.
Maybe.
You guys want to know a story, which I kind of know that, but I'll tell it because again, I'll say allegedly because I'm not supposed to say it because I know the story. The whole thing, the whole feud, the real feud comes for a song. They actually have a song together, and there was a dispute on where was the song going to be released and who was going to get all the stuff, and the song never came out. So that is part of the whole Kanye Taylor Swift thing. So that's
Yeah.
that's where it
Interesting.
comes. That's where it comes from.
I dislike her so
That's
much
interesting.
that I just have no comment. I really don't
She's
like
a good
her.
songwriter. She's a really good songwriter. Like she can
I'm
piece
not
words
taking
together.
that away from her. I still just don't like her.
No, fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm an underground guy. I really don't. I see talent when talent do. She's a very talented girl.
Yeah, her ability to connect to her target
yeah.
market.
She's a
Yeah.
very
Absolutely,
talented
that too.
girl. I just like I said, I don't listen to her music because it doesn't appeal to me personally. But I feel like she's a very talented person. But all right, congratulations to Drake. Hopefully, other Canadians, Tory Lanez might get deported, so he'll never get that. So we'll see how that goes. So we're gonna go with another news, Canadian news. We're keeping it a Canadian this episode, and it's the Canadian military intelligence monitor Black Lives Matter movement, Canada, especially Toronto, the principal one. So the Canadian Forces Intelligence Office compiled data on the Black Lives Matter movement in Ontario. This was released. One of the co-founders, Black Lives Matter, responded. Jasmeet Singh responded. The intelligence officers noted that there was Black Lives Matter chapters in Toronto and Waterloo, and they produced timeline of 25 demonstrations in the province. They were saying this, the Canadian Forces is saying that they just did it because of the COVID and the pandemic and just for security reasons. Again, this has already started getting a little bit political. But what's your take? Let's go with you, Alon. What's your take on this?
I'm not surprised by it. I mean, the government has always stuck its nose into Black resistance movements in the States and North America in general. So this is no surprise that they're treating Black Lives Matter as some sort of domestic terrorist organization. We have people from the far right who do call Black Lives Matter a terrorist movement. So it doesn't surprise me. It's definitely upsetting. It's definitely the oldest trick in the book, and I don't understand. I think what I don't understand is why politicians and the powers that be feel the need to single out, Black movements. Is it because you're wrong? Like, is it because that you done fucked up? Like, there are so many other domestic terrorist issues that need that kind of, resources and need that kind of time and investigation. You've got these incel movements. You've got a bunch of other movements that are going on that need to be investigated and need to be, targeted and dismantled. And here you are bothering people who are fighting for equality. That seems like just the punk way to try to say you're doing something. So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that it's here in Canada. I'm actually surprised. I am surprised that, it's come to light here in Canada. Usually Canada sweeps this kind of shit under the rug, but times are different and times are changing. So, I'm not surprised by it at all.
What about you, Clinton?
To be honest, this is one of the rare times that I was actually really annoyed at the media while reading the article. It kind of pissed me off a bit. I mean, I feel like I like Jagmeet Singh, but I feel like he was just taking advantage of this information to make a bit of political ground. I mean, it sounds bad and it sounds horrible, the military monitoring and observing Black people, but I feel like they probably monitor all groups and all groups that monetize in large ways and group together and plan things. I mean, isn't that their job? Isn't that part of the military's job to monitor things and look for possible problems? Because the fact is, the end of their report did declare that after all their investigation, they found all the BLM protests to be peaceful and in order and not a threat. Yet the media is making it seem like it's a huge violation of privacy. I'll be honest with you, this sounds bad. If I was running the country and there was all this chaos happening all across the country, I'd monitor I'd monitor the hate groups, I'd monitor the BLM groups. I want to know what everyone's doing, what they're up to, and what's going on. I don't know if this would be an unpopular opinion. It doesn't seem like a big deal to me. It seems like the military should be monitoring large gatherings of people. That's what they do. It's information tech, it's information, it's security, it's stuff like that. I thought it was blown out of proportion. I was happy about the fact. I mean, in the end, after all this, the conclusion was that BLM wasn't doing anything bad. So in the end, they're monitoring them, and the conclusion was things were all good. What I was really surprised about when reading the article was the admission about the military's consideration to use over $1 million in taxpayer-funded money to try to use propaganda to shift public opinion on certain issues. Did you guys read about that?
There is some part about that, but I mean, when it comes to the propaganda part, it doesn't really necessarily say that it wasn't BLM. It says that it's part of their tactics, apparently.
In general, yeah, it's just the admission that they are trying to consciously manipulate people's thoughts using marketing, the military and the government.
That is a kind of a tactic that they use. What were you going to say, Alon?
I just wanted to say that, yes, I get what Clinton's point about, if you're running a country, you want to know what's going on. I think the problem here is that you have a very, consistent history of government and military, constantly looking to dismantle, blacks, namely, but visible minorities who want to gather together and try to inflict and invoke change. I think that's where kind of the problem comes in. And I don't doubt that the media or politicians are trying to use this as a soapbox to stand on. But I think that there's a reason for that. Like, when white people gather together, these investigations aren't happening, right? There was no military investigating, Trump rallies. It just doesn't happen the way that it happens.
But I was gonna say that, which I was gonna let Hillary do, but actually, the same thing that they did with Black Lives Matter in Canada, they did it with the Proud Boys, and that's how they got the Proud Boys to be catalyzed as a terrorist group. So they have done that on white supremacist group. And
okay, but what I'm saying is that fine, they did that, but did they go ahead and try? They don't take the steps that they take when it comes to Black people gatherings. What I'm trying to say, right? If we're going to go back to even the Black Panther movement and everything, like they don't take the steps that they take. Okay, so you analyze the Proud Boys, and it takes you how long and how much money for you to figure out that they're fucking terror? Like that doesn't wash with me. Like, okay, great. So you looked at this group and said they were a terrorist group. Did you utilize propaganda to try to shift public opinion? No. Did you call on local authorities to dismantle their gatherings? No.
Well,
did that happen in Canada?
Not the same.
Were the gatherings dismantled last year?
In this particular case, they did the same. They did the same investigation with the Proud Boys, the same as they did with BLM. They did it with the Proud Boys.
Well, under state of emergency, is it illegal? Is it illegal to gather like that? Under state of emergency,
yes. Yeah. Depend if it's a public threat like COVID, yes, it is. It is illegal.
I don't know. I feel like I'm all for calling out the bullshit. But I feel like they're trying to make bullshit out of something that isn't bullshit. And I could be wrong, and I could be missing something. And you're right, Alon. There's a history of trauma associated with these exact same kinds of actions. But in the end, they're calling Proud Boys terrorists, and they're calling BLM peaceful. That was their conclusion. So why is everyone...
I can't give a pass for someone calling out an obvious terrorist group terrorists. Right. And I don't give that a pass, because, again, there is that trauma of past incidents where the government did not find certain groups to be terrorist groups. OK, like the Ku Klux Klan. I think we're still fighting in America, at least, to call them a domestic terrorist group. You still have this history of just the government taking very swift and very violent action against people of color and Black people, especially, gathering together and trying to invoke change. You don't get a pass from me for calling the Proud Boys a fucking terrorist group. A blind man could have seen that. That doesn't get a pass from me. All right, it just doesn't, because you allowed these guys to go ahead and gather. They were violent when they gathered, so it wasn't like Black Lives Matter protests or BLM. It wasn't like that. These dudes were going out. They were picking fights. They were starting riots. They were extremely violent. So there was no way you could go ahead and not call them a terrorist group, right? So I'm the cynical one. I'm just saying that I can't give it a pass, and I just think that, you know, targeting once again Black people for organizing. Yeah, great. You found they were peaceful. Well, we know that. Again, this is not news, right? I just feel like it just doesn't sit right with me in the end.
I thought it was shockingly surprising that the conclusion was that it was peaceful. I didn't expect to read that at the end of the article.
Right.
What do you think, Hillary? What is your
I'm like a bit on the fence on both sides. I think that, like, yeah, there's a history of the cops trying to, you know, prevent progress and change when Black people come together and do something. And so obviously hearing that it's not so much monitoring the group and what they're doing at the moment of the protest, right? It's going back and like doing background checks of the people who showed up and all of these other things that don't necessarily sit right with me. But at the same time, if you're doing it to all groups, then is the media just blowing this out of proportion in a way to make it seem like it's a racial issue when it is something they do customary? Like it does make me feel a little bit like, is this a manipulation of the media to try to rile up Black people in the way that we are, to make us feel like this was a racist thing and this isn't something they do for every major group or march? But like, are they doing this for things like Pride that are known? Are they doing this for only like independent things that aren't part of like a holiday or a festival? Like, how many times am I outside in a group setting that's big enough that they're then going to check out like this this person's face and facial recognition and find my social insurance number and figure out if I'm a voter? Like, I don't understand. Like, I guess I'd like to know more about how it's actually working and what are all the settings that they're doing this in, because if it's just, or every time an organization comes together in a big group, you're checking out what their real reason of getting together is, then make reports like this as known and as important as this Black Lives Matter one. Don't make it just seem like, oh, we gave the Black people the okay, because then it makes it seem like what we were doing was shady from the start when it never fucking was. And you do this to every group that assembles together. And I don't know if the fault in that is the military or the media. I don't know which person is playing their cards in that way, but I don't like the way it's being portrayed.
I mean, if I was the one that I found out the military, when they probably are, the military was spying on me, I guess I'd be upset. But you know what's funny? Like, think back to June of 2020 and how shocked, like how scared, like white people in power must have been, right? George Floyd gets murdered, and then boom, millions of people, Black people and white people, are all on the streets all over the country, and just going at it. Like, that would raise, again, if I was in power, I'd be scared enough to say, like, call out the military to be like, what's happening? Are they going to overthrow the entire country?
But is my perception wrong, or was it really that bad in Canada? Because in America, they couldn't even, like, did they even do that properly for the fucking insurrection they let happen? Like,
that was my point.
Hindsight's 2020, though.
But yes.
We now know what happened, but they didn't know at the time.
But at the time, but what you're...
Go ahead.
What we're saying, though, is that at the Black Lives Matter rallies in Toronto and Ottawa, those happened before the insurrection. Were both groups monitored in the same way? Now, this is a different country, but in Canada, I guess what we're saying is that the Proud Boys grouping together was monitored in the same way as our Black Lives Matter marches. Okay, but in America, where that thing is happening, like you're saying, where the white people in power are seeing literally all groups of people in the streets ready, like, out for blood. If they're monitoring all of those people, wouldn't you think that those like the same white people at the hate rallies would have been the same ones at the insurrection, and they could have pieced that shit together? Like, I don't know which government's at fault, but it just seems to me like somewhere all the I's aren't dotted and all the T's aren't crossed.
Because they even included Justin Trudeau as a supporter, and so they were monitoring him, and like they noted all different celebrities that were getting involved and stuff like that, and even Justin Trudeau listed in the report.
Yeah, well, because I know the way that Jagmeet said it was
he was making jumping through all the hoops. Go
right.
ahead.
No, but like if I know that the way Jagmeet said it was like, while Justin Trudeau's kneeling, you're all being monitored, and like fine. But it seemed to me like in that article that they were talking about like monitoring mainly the Toronto gathering, and like that one seemed to me to be more not only about BLM but very much more an ACAB. Like from my friends who attended it, it went on for weeks and weeks, and it was very much like at the Toronto police stations and like fuck you guys, and not so much just a marching in solidarity for George Floyd being killed, but also a defund the police situation. Whereas here in Ottawa, it seemed to me like a group of people coming together in solidarity for someone's death and not so much invoking change here at the Capitol. Sure. So I don't know if they're monitoring different places that had different vibes that seem to be out there for different purposes. But I guess like I would just like to know, again, are they doing this every time people group together? Like, is it only when individual organizations do this, or like Pride, which happens in every single province? Are you checking out to make sure that like all the people in those groups don't have like, I don't know, hateful reasons to be there? What if they all are actually homophobes who want to kill all the gay? Like, what is the purpose of all of this?
The big question is, were they monitoring the Pride groups and the huge parades for the first few years or not?
Yeah, yeah.
How they established that
it's blah, blah, blah. A good cause and actually a heartfelt.
And are we all pretending situation that we're not being monitored to begin with, and that they can't tap into anything they want at any point in time?
Well, that's why I don't care. But then that's the same kind of comment that raises the question: if we are all being monitored, then how do they not already know that BLM is a good organization? How do they not already know that the insurrection was going to happen? Like, how much? If we're being monitored and watched all the time, if my phone is on me and you see where I'm going, at what point do we get to know that, like, oh, the FBI knows I'm at a KKK rally? Like, at what point can they be more helpful and more progressive if they know where I am all the time? Like, you know, when I'm at Costco, you know where I am if I'm within other people who have COVID. There's a COVID app that can tell you if I'm near another person, but you can't figure out if I'm part of a hate group and a terrorist.
That's a different point, but that's a very good point.
Thank you.
But I will say this, and again, I think I do agree with Clinton in this part. Like, is there racism in Canada, and the organizations like the Canadian Forces have racism? Yes, they have admitted it in this set. However, all right-wing groups and hate groups have been investigated by the Canadian Armed Forces. All coalition forces have been investigated, like the Bloc Québécois. Not just, again, this is not just Black Lives Matter movement. If we're talking about Quebec, there was extreme groups in Quebec that wanted Quebec liberation, like the Bloc Québécois. They were investigated by the Canadian Forces. If we look at people like Al-Shabaab, which was a group, they were also investigated by the Canadian Forces. If we look at people like the Proud Boys, the KKK, like all of these groups that have some type of movement, this is part of their job. This is part of what they're supposed to do, because it's in national intent. You know, if there's some type of danger or domestic terrorism in the country, that's part of what the Canadian Forces are supposed to do. I do believe that the media in this case kind of went for a little bit of a reach, because again, this is their job. This is what they're supposed to do. And it's not like they have done it with like just Black people. Again, Bloc Québécois is a great example. It's that, and they did have the Canadian Forces. In fact, the Canadian Forces went in when Pierre Trudeau was president. The Canadian Armed Forces weren't in Quebec, which was something unprecedented, that they had to bring the military into a Canadian province. So again, I think this is part of their job. It doesn't really again, I can understand Lon's point, because in the United States it happens a lot. Yeah. It is something that does happen in the United States, happens a lot, and in fact, people like the KKK are able to do rallies in the States, which is bonkers to me, but they are able to do it, which you cannot do that here. But in this particular case, that's their job. That's what they're supposed to do, and they have done it with other other far right groups and other extremist group, or somebody that they think is extremist. So I will say that was a little bit of a reach for them, but I do want to get your opinion before we wrap this up. What did you think about Jasmine Singh comment?
You're asking all of us?
Yeah.
I think politicians always use whatever tidbit of information they can to their advantage. But again, I think this was a bit too much of a transparent reach. I think, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to track. I support Jagmeet Singh. I think he's pretty great. But when I read the comments he made, I was like, dude, like it's a bit much. You're really pulling strings here.
I felt like his comment didn't change anything. Like, Justin Trudeau appears to be doing nice things all the time, when in reality our whole province, like our whole country, is suffering. Like I personally out myself as not really conservative or a liberal. Like I didn't appreciate his comment, but at the same time, I don't believe any politicians are out there doing good things and they're not signing shitty deals in the background. We're going for the pipeline, not giving natives clean water, not like helping Black people out of jail for like weed charges. Like you're all pretty shitty people who just wanted power. Be out there at the shook Justin Trudeau's hand at the Pride Parade, knowing he was an asshole. Like y'all suck. It's the same.
Yeah.
What about you, Alon?
I agree with Clinton and Hillary. It doesn't surprise me that he took this opportunity to try to, stab Trudeau again. I mean, that's just what he's looking to do. He wants to be the man, right? So he's going to take any chance he gets. I think for me, it's a check in the negative column for me. I thought he had a bit more integrity and a bit more character than this. So I usually he makes good points and his points are valid and he makes sure that he has a firm ground to stand on. This one, I agree with Clinton. This one, it just seemed like he was really trying to make it into something to try to bolster his his notoriety and what he's trying to do. So I mean, he's a politician. At the end of the day, no matter how cool he is, no matter how much karate he knows, no matter how young he is, at the end of the day, he's a politician, right? And politicians are going to do what they need to do to advance their careers. I think people need to keep that in the back of their head that, yeah, he may seem like he's Mr. Progressive and Mr. Change, but he is in a political game that has certain rules. So I just think he was playing the game.
All right. And just a reminder, kids, politicians suck. So with that, we're going to wrap up this session. Don't forget to go to our website, blackandthemaritimes.com, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Patreon. Please support us on Patreon, which is going to be launched, Black and the Maritimes. Again, for congratulations to our TikTok, 700 people on TikTok. Hopefully we can get to 800. Instagram is going really well. Hopefully we can get to 900 there. So yeah, thanks for the support. You guys have anything else left to say?
If you listen, I want to hear people's comments on who they think the hottest artists are going to be in Billboard in the next 10 years. That's something I want to hear everyone's feedback on. And I want to hear your feedback on what we just talked about as well. Government, military monitoring, Black Lives Matter. What do you think about that?
All right. Hillary?
Rob Berry on social media. Check out Second Glances. I'm ready for bed. Good night, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for waiting up for me. I thought you guys would have recorded by now. Don't try to buy a car from a friend in the middle of nowhere. friendly neighborhood advice.
That is good
advice out
there.
But yeah, no, check out my band Echo 7. We're in all streaming platforms. The big news that we wanted to announce is going to be another week or so before I actually want to announce it because there's a lot of pieces that are moving. But yeah, check us out, check our music out, check out our videos. LSD Salon, check out Clinton Salon if you're in the DF area. Aesthetics, products, all the stuff to make your ass pretty. Go see them. And yeah, check out Cropberry, like her pictures, listen to her rants. I love her dating rants. They're very entertaining if you get a chance. When she does her whole Once Upon a Time, this girl in Ontario dated blah blah blah. They're very nice. But I like them. So check them out. support her second glances, support her blogs, and Fidel does what Fidel does. Support Black in the Maritimes. Buy merch, give us money.
Atlantic DeFi.
Comment. Oh, and comment when you're on Apple Podcasts. It helps the ratings and helps the standings. So make sure you drop a 5-star and leave a comment, good, bad, or indifferent.
Hold on. Okay, that reminds me. So in my company, lsdbeauty.ca, lasalondiep.com, whatever. So there's a company called AG Hair. They're a Canadian company out of Vancouver. They're a global company. They've been around for a long time, and they're in the middle right now of their annual campaign. So they have a flat iron spray. It's the most popular one. It's called Firewall. But for this month, every year, there's a campaign called onegirlcan.com. 50 cents from every sale of all of these flat iron sprays around the world go to fund these organizations in Africa that help to build schools for people in disenfranchised communities, help to pay for education, and they do something really interesting for young women. So in the poorest African countries, for about a week, a month, young girls can't go to school because they can't afford the sanitary products necessary to allow them to attend class. So they have to stay home. So that creates this spiral effect that makes the women in these countries fall way behind the men and not get a proper education. They can't go to school when they're having their menstrual cycle. So the promotion's going on right now at lasalondiep.com. The product that is in question, it's called Firewall. We have it on sale. So if anyone is interested in supporting that, whether they get it from us or anywhere else, it's a great cause. They've been doing it for I think 13 years right now. And it's one great way to help young African women get ahead and get the education they need.
All right. Support that. All right. Peace, guys.
Peace.
Bye.
Is the stop button.